Hey folks, welcome back. I'm David and we're here in my shop where I build E-War guitars. This is going to be episode number 6 of my entry into the GGBO 2022 scratch build competition. And I am building a neck through guitar. If you've been following along, you know we've got the neck blank all made up and we're working on our 2 body wings right now. I've got this past video, I got a bunch of machining work done. I chambered these, the core of these bodies. I got the tops and backs glued on. Got some beautiful quilted maple happening here. I got a wenge core with some bloodwood and maple veneer. And in this video, we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep working on these 2 body wings. We're going to get the profile cut out of the outside. We're going to do some more. That is what I thought I was going to do. I was wrong. Some things went wrong and I had to deal with it. Let me explain. So everything was going along just fine. I went ahead and cut out both the body wings on the bandsaw, and I did my control cavity recess in the back of the bass side. And I thought, well, what the heck? While it's still down on the bass side, why don't I go ahead and cut my belly carve in there? So I swapped out the bits. I put in the ball nose, the 1/4-inch ball nose bit, and I started going to town. Now, this is exactly the same thing I did on the mock-up I did, but there was a couple things different, and it didn't occur to me until after I got about this far right here, where I realized I just screwed up something big time. So I stopped the machine and tried to come up with a fix. Well, that was sure a screw up. As you can see, I have a great big hole here in the back of this guitar where I was doing this belly carve in here. So I think what happened was, even though I made myself a complete mock-up of this guitar out of MDF, I still screwed the thing up. On this mock-up, I used a piece of 3/4 in the middle, and I put a piece of 1/2 inch on either side of it to come up with my 1 3/4 thickness body. And I cut this belly carve with the CNC machine in this mock-up, just as if I was going to cut it on the actual thing. And so I start cutting this on the actual body wing here, the laminated one that's been chambered in the middle. And I'm starting to watch it, and I'm beginning to think, hey, wait a minute, now this is only a 1/4-inch thick top on this thing, and below the 1/4-inch thick top is a hole, a chamber. And then this one is a 1/2 inch thick top. And if you could see right here, you could see how much of the underlying body was exposed right here, if you could see that. And so in my mind, because that kind of went through my mind before, in my mind I said, well, I mean, I'm going to have a 1 inch, total 1 inch of solid wood around the edge of this thing. And I didn't really think I was going to breach it, or at least I didn't give it enough thought back when I was thinking of all this. So as I'm cutting it, I'm watching this thing progress along, this little carve, that ball end mill cut along here, and I'm watching, I'm thinking, my God, that's getting awfully close to that thing. So I kind of reached in there while the thing was going, and I was kind of measuring where 1 inch was, and I thought, oh shoot, that's gonna breach that hole. I'm gonna have a hole in this thing. So I stopped the CNC, I pulled it out, I went over, I thought, well, let me finish the belly carve on my spindle sander like I used to do. So I clamped it on, I got this jig, I clamped it on there, and I thought it was a bit of a steeper cut, and I thought I could get past that hole, and then I would work it in by hand, and it would just have gotten really thin in this area, but not too thin that it would have been bad. That was what I was thinking. So as I'm going on my spindle sander, sure enough, there that little line showed right up. I said, well, shoot, it's ruined. So let me go ahead and stick it back in the CNC machine and let me rerun this thing and just see where it would have wound up had I just let it go. And that's what you see right there. So, gosh, I don't know. I hate it when stuff happens, but you know, stuff happens sometimes, especially if it's the first time you're building a particular guitar, because you got to work all this stuff out. And I didn't think of the right things at the right time. So anyway, I'm trying to figure out a fix for this thing, because man, I've got a lot of work in this little part right here. And I'm trying to think of some things. Now this was the chamber that I cut out from before. And it's the same wood. It was cut right out of that spot, out of that core of this guitar. So I'm halfway thinking, and I'm not sure if this is gonna work. I may plane this maple top off of the back, plane off the quilted maple. Kind of retrim that down in there with my CNC machine to get a nice clean edge, because you remember I've got shielding paint painted in there, but I may run the CNC machine around that inner edge, get that cleaned up, and then cut a piece of this to fit and sort of glue it in place, make a new top, glue the top back on, and be able to carry on. And then do a much different belly carve next time where it wouldn't cut into that. So anyway, very disappointing. I'm still going to think about how to fix it. I may scrap the whole thing and just make this wing over again. I may do that. It was a hell of a lot of work though, so I really don't want to do that. All those bloodwood veneers, they were a lot of work. The whole thing was a lot of work. But that may be what I go back to. I don't know. We'll just see. But I'm going to think about it. But in the meantime, I'm going to carry on the other side and keep going with the rest of the guitar. And while I'm figuring out a fix for this thing, you know, I always try to show my mistakes because shit happens sometimes. You just gotta, either you gotta fix it or you gotta start over from scratch, one way or the other. Those are your two choices basically. So we'll see if I can figure out what I think is going to be a good fix and it's going to be still a decent guitar when I'm done. I'll fix it. If not, I'll scrap that part and I'll start from scratch. Anyway, let's carry on the treble side and see if we don't screw something up on that. Okay, I said I was going to move on and start cutting that other side of the body, but this just bugged me so bad I was really thinking about how to fix this thing. So I went ahead, I figured, you know, it's almost a lost cause anyway, so why don't I try a couple things and see if I can make it work. So I went over there and I drew a little tool path that's going to cut this area out right here, kind of following the line of the belly carve and then coming over here about just 5/8 of an inch off of the edge of the guitar. And we're going to cut it out and see if we can't cut a plug out of this thing. Anyway, I'm going to give it a shot. So I'm going to slap this thing back in the CNC machine right now and see what we can do with it.
Falling back asleep with the memory buried deep. We are one in all we are. Here and now sit fixed apart. Someone tell me, lay it out.
Okay, so that hole came out pretty good. I cut it out. I reduced this down to about 5/8 of an inch thick, and I think it all came out pretty well, pretty nice. So now I'm taking this part right here, which was the body chamber cut out of there, and I hope I've got it lined up right because that's kind of an odd shaped piece. And I'm cutting an odd shaped piece out of this. It's got to kind of come out of down here. And I think I've got it lined up right, but I'm going to glue this down with some CA glue onto that tape, slap it down there and try to cut that out and see if that won't fit that hole.
What have we become? Sister.
Okay, so it looks to me like this thing is going to fit in here really, really well. Although I don't want to try to, let me see if I can get that around in front of the camera. I think it's going to fit like right on the money. Although I don't want to try to jam it in there because I'm going to have to do something with this maple top anyway. So I think I'm going to take my surfacing bit and set a tool path to cut right along the edge of the belly carve and just completely take that piece out and get something else and put it in. Well, let me back up. I'll take that out. I'll be able to drop this in and clamp it in place against this edge here, which is where we need it the most. And this should sit flush with the top of that because it was, after all, that piece right there anyhow. So I'm going to cut this out, try to get this glued into place, and then I'll cut a piece to lay on top of this, maybe out of a different wood altogether. I'm not sure. But anyway, let me go to the computer and write a tool path to cut that out, and we'll take the next step. Okay, so here's the fix so far. So I've got the body cut out. I've cut out that entire piece that where the thing breached. I surfaced it all down to the top of the bloodwood. Although, you know, nothing's ever perfect, and I set it at 0.226 inches, and it seemed to cut into the bloodwood a little bit, but I think it'll be okay. And then I actually cut my piece, and this was the piece that was part of that chamber cutout from before, and I recut that, and I had to shape the ends a little bit, and it fits down in there really nicely, just like that. And the way the cut came out, that because this was a 1-inch wide wood around the edge of the guitar before, and I cut it back to 5/8, it actually gave me a little thing here on each end, which is going to allow me to, because this would be a hard thing to clamp in place, but I can actually slip my X-Acto knife in there, like so, and the other one in here, and those are basically going to be my clamps for clamping that thing back in place. So there's my filler back in there. It's got the same veneers stacked up. It's got the redwood. I'll have to surface this down a little bit because it's up, I mean, maybe a 1/64 of an inch, but I'll do that. And then I also surfaced off the top. So I took my surfacing bit and I cut this all the way back. That's actually beyond where the belly carve would go. And I've got another piece of this quilted maple. Has a very different grain pattern than this, which I think might be kind of cool. So what I'm thinking about doing now is gluing this guy back into place, getting it all nice and letting that dry over tonight. And then tomorrow, get my other piece of quilted maple and cut out this shape. I should be able to get it to fit right along that edge really nice. And then maybe take a piece of veneer, like I have some ebony veneer, so it might be cool to have like a dark line that goes right in there that's going to follow right along the edge of the belly carve. And I think it'd be kind of cool. We'll have one grain pattern on quilted maple here and a separate one over here. Yet it's the same wood, a little different grain pattern. I thought that might kind of be sort of cool, you know? So though this was a pain in the neck, and it may turn out to have been a happy little accident. Anyway, so that's the fix. I'm going to get this guy glued in tonight, and tomorrow we're going to get back on this and try to finish this fix. Okay, so here's my repair so far. I've got that plug glued back in there, and this morning I got it out of the clamps, and I used a combination of scrapers and a little bit of sandpaper, and I've got them all flushed up really nice. I think it came out really well. And also took I had this block of wood, little curved block of wood that I've got a piece of 220 grit sandpaper sanded to it, and I went around the inside of this cut here, this long cut, because that's what I'm going to be fitting up against, and I just went over it pretty gently with the 220 to kind of clean up any of the machining marks or anything, and I think it looks pretty good so far. So, and also last night while the glue was drying, I went ahead and I got another piece of quilted maple out, which I hated cutting it up for this, but at the same time, you got to do what you got to do. Anyway, so I've got it thinned down. I've got it at a 1/4 inch thick, and it's a good thickness for this guy right here. And I've got it redrawn, this piece redrawn on the computer, and I'm about to go right now and print the tool path for that or save it on my thumb drive and get over here to the CNC and cut it out. And I'm hoping, I got my fingers crossed, I want a really nice tight fit there. If it's not a perfectly tight fit, I'm going to have to work at it to get it there. But also think I've got some ebony veneer, which is really super thin. And I believe I'm going to go ahead and cut me a little strip down to a 1/4 inch wide, glue it to this piece here first, and then glue it on. Because I think that would look really cool to have a really thin strip of dark wood in here. Love to have wenge, but the ebony is dark too. So I don't think anybody ever knows the difference. So anyway, that's what we're going to do, and my hope is to get this thing glued back on there. I'll have to recut this hole here because, of course, my cut back got into that a little bit, but I think that's going to be part of the coolness of the thing too. Anyway, so the fix continues.
Falling back asleep with the memory buried deep. We don't want it all, we are here and now, sit fixed apart.
All right, so let's see how this thing's going to fit. You'll see it with me for the first time. I'm just going to clean up this back edge here a little bit. It got some fuzzies. That was a down cut spiral bit I used. And I turned the speed down on it. I think I was cutting at 30 inches a minute, which is slower than I normally go because I wanted a really clean, nice clean cut. I think even though I could probably fit that a little better, but it actually has this, it seems like it's touching right up here and right down here, and the rest has got a gap to it as though it was a piece of veneer. So I'm going to see if I can't do something with that. And I may like try to sand there and there a little bit just to try to get that in a tad tighter. And that way we'll have an equal gap, but I think overall that flows pretty good.
Do you feel something yet? We're a little or plenty, bowing down nonetheless. My brother, dear brother, hold fast in the midst. All is working against you, but you've got confidence. It's the taste on my tongue, it's the tang in my mouth. Double down on the cause, little room for the doubt. It's the body of bread.
Okay, so I've got this fill-in piece fit 99.9% of the way. It's looking really good, and I think to finish the fit, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and glue this veneer onto the edge of this thing first. And so I've got it stuck here in my vise, and I've got my binding tape right here, and I'm using my Ultra Cat glue. It has great bonding strength to it, and it's dark brown too, so that'll match the color of this as well. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to apply it with this. I took a popsicle stick and I sort of squared up the end a little bit and beveled it. Hopefully I'll get it on there without making too big of a mess. But anyway, let's give this a try.
What have we become? What have we become?
All right, so I've got my veneer glued on here nice. I went ahead and took my little sanding block here and I cleaned up the front and back, and I sanded this edge down to get any dried glue off it because we don't want to try to glue on over dried glue. And I think I've got a good fit. I am pretty pleased when I suck it in tight with the clamps. It tightens up nicely. And it's going to be a little bit tricky gluing it up, but I am ready to go with that. I've got my Ultra Cat glue here. I'm going to go ahead and mix this up and start clamping, see how we do. All right, so there's that piece back in place. Got my little ebony veneer going through there, just giving it a dark line. I am thrilled to death with the way that turned out. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but boy, that's a nice fit. It took some work. It definitely took some work once the CNC cut it out. It took a lot of finessing to get those lines to line up just right, and giving it for the gap of I had to, of course, increase the gap to make it right for that piece of veneer. But anyway, I'm very happy. And I went ahead and I just hit it with my bench plane on top just to clean up the surface a little bit so I could see it. I was so excited about it. And I went ahead and also cut this little guy in here too. Of course, I just dropped it back on the fixture and it lined up perfect. I re-ran this cutout hole here. As you can see, it cuts into the new piece. So I re-ran that and it ran in the perfect spot. So those alignment pins really work out well too. But anyway, I think I'm at the spot now where I'm going to go ahead and put it back on there and go ahead and cut my belly carve in again. And it should follow probably about a quarter of an inch off of that piece of veneer. It should start right about there, about a quarter inch off of that, and then bevel it on down. Anyway, let's go on over to the CNC and let's see how that goes. Well, I sincerely hope somebody out there can learn a little something from my mistakes. Stuff happens like that, guitar building, probably anything you do really. Stuff can go wrong. You forget, you miss a step, something like that, things can go wrong. Anyway, but I think it came out really cool. I'm pleased with the fix. That's the important thing. I think it's a good solid fix. It's got a nice bevel to it. I got that really cool little piece of ebony running in there. I think that really looks good. And I think once this is all sanded up and there's some finish on there, that's all going to really be beautiful. I really do. And at the same time, I managed to cut out the treble side and got the bevels all done on it and got my control cavity cut in and everything else. So anyway, it's fixed and I'm ready to move on with the next stage, get back onto that next video, and hopefully I won't screw up anything there either. Anyway, hope you all got a little something out of this. I enjoy doing it even when I screw stuff up. And but I hope you all come back next week and check it out. We're going to get back on the neck. Anyway, you all have a wonderful week. God bless you, and we'll see you all in the next one.